Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support. Welcome to episode 32. In our previous episode where we discussed alternative living, we stumbled upon the subject that we're going to be talking about, which is what happens to your child when they turn 18. And the previous episode I was all worked up about, and we're going to cue you into being ramped up on this conversation. But as always, please do like, subscribe, and comment. Do ask us the questions. We really love listening to our viewers engage in conversation with us. So please do that, and don't forget to share and subscribe.
Well done. Okay, so this is going to be geared more towards autistic individuals with higher support needs.
So you're level 2, level 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've talked before about funding. We're in Ontario, Canada. So we talked all about funding in episode 7. So I'm not going to go into that here. The information for that is all available on our website. I've got a link in the description. Please go and check that out if you're interested in learning more about funding for Ontario. This is personal to me because my youngest son, Peter, is level 3. He's non-speaking. And he's going to be turning 18. And there's a lot of transitioning that happens from being a child into adulthood. But what no one anywhere has said anything about is guardianship.
Yes. And the reason we stumbled upon that is because we wanted to talk about, in our previous episodes, we said we're going to talk about, wills and estate planning. And our research led us to this and shocked the hell out of both of us, more specifically you than me.
I had someone, I had Peter's speech and language pathologist actually mention guardianship to me a few months before. And I sort of didn't really filter through and I put it on the back burner. And then as we were doing all of this, I started to look into it. And this is going to be a little bit of a rant now because of the sheer stupidity surrounding this topic, which just aggravates me to no end. Okay, so my fault. I assumed, right, that when Peter turned 18, that I would simply continue to care for him as I always have. There was no other information. So no one anywhere along the way of this journey has ever mentioned anything contrary to that understanding that I had.
So I'm just going to say nobody. That would include your doctor. That would include Peter's doctor. That would include your education system. That would include your community or nobody. Zero, zilch, nobody, nada. Not even the government.
So you and I spent 6 hours across 2 days doing interviews to determine Peter's support needs for Disability Services Ontario, right? So in order for us to apply for that for Peter, they do a rigorous interview process to learn all about him and what his needs are.
And questionnaire.
Yeah. Yes. And it was literally 6 hours across 2 days. And nowhere did they mention this. And this is for him to transition from services that he would get as a child to services he would get as an adult. And it was not mentioned. And even though we've applied to Disability Services Ontario, I still have to separately apply to the Ontario Disability Support Program, which is, they both have Ontario in the names. It's all provincial stuff. But those two government offices apparently do not talk to each other, and it is a separate thing altogether.
Which is a common occurrence across the board when it comes to the government.
Right. So I had assumed that when he turns 18, I would continue to care for him. But legally, he becomes an adult. And when you become an adult, that means that I am no longer able to make decisions for him about his property or about his person. He cannot speak for himself, but legally that doesn't matter. Right? So then what is your next step?
So when we actually got into researching this, it blew my mind. It just blew my mind to think that, at 18, that's it. Your parents are no longer legally responsible for caring for you. Like that, it just like, where is the logic in that? Where is this should be given to you every step of the way.
Oh, but this gets worse. It gets worse than that. So no one ever mentioned guardianship. So that means that when he turns 18, I can't open a bank account for him or access a bank account for him, right? Because he's 18. That I have no legal right to assist him in any of that. So the money that he's going to receive from these support programs will need to be deposited into an account, which I can't create and he can't create for himself. Okay, that's great. So then I go down the rabbit hole, right? And I am good at researching.
Yep.
And this was hard for me.
It is, because it's really emotional, right?
It's not even that. It's that I can't find the information that I want. And that is enough to just drive me over the edge, because you would think that that information should be accessible to you, and it is not accessible. Okay, so first thing I do is I go onto the government website, ontario.ca, to determine how one goes about getting guardianship of their adult child, right? There are two methods to getting guardianship of a person. And that's just for their guardianship of their property. That's not for them. So property is just that. It's their financial part, and then guardianship of the person is like medical decisions for them. And those are two separate applications.
Yep, they are.
So to apply for guardianship of property, there's two methods. You can, the first one is to apply to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice for them to appoint a by a judge in a court proceeding.
Yeah.
Okay.
For your own child, might I add.
Oh yeah.
For your own child that you've cared for right up until the age of 18.
Oh, but that is irrelevant. This is for any person, right? There is no separate thing for it being your child. That doesn't matter. The second is if the office of the public guardian and trustee already serves as guardian of property for the incapable person, and that is the government terminology. You can apply to replace them, but you can only do this if you are the incapable person's spouse, partner, or relative, and then the office of the public guardian and trustee will review the suitability of the person applying to replace them. So it's not even a guarantee. It's up to them. They get to decide.
Now, once again, I am hoping that logic will prevail. However, I've had to discard that approach because logically you should have been given this information all along. However, since you have been caring for Peter all of this time in his every single day, day in and day out, you would think that this trustee would be saying this is the most compatible person to be able to care for him.
Right. Except that along this journey, I talked to many, many different people, and I have heard absolute personal horror stories about when the public guardian and trustee starts to come into play. Horrible. And I won't talk about it because I feel like that's a violation of privacy of someone telling me their personal story, but jaw-dropping, like Hollywood movie jaw-dropping. So for my situation, they are not involved. The public trustee is not involved. So I have to go with the first option, which is to apply to the Superior Court of Justice. Okay. Now you'd think that would be outlined on the government website.
You would think.
How one would apply for guardianship of property. It is not. So what is written on the website is consult with a lawyer if you are considering this action.
Yes.
Okay.
That is also the research that I got because we both did the research on this topic.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about cost. Fees for filing court documents, like a statement of claim or notice of application, can range anywhere from about $250 to $650. That's just to file your application. To hire a lawyer, you're looking at an average rate of almost $300 an hour, plus tax. And all of that adds up to several $1,000s. One legal website even quoted it being $7,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea that I might have to pay thousands of dollars for the right to continue to care for my son as I have done for the past 18 years. I don't have $10,000 to spend on this. Okay, so my next question: is there any sort of legal representation for low-income families? In Ontario, we have legal aid. I called them. No, they do not cover guardianship. Okay. They send me to Community Legal Services. They said, oh, I don't know why they sent you here. We don't do it. Try Family Law Service Center. Okay. Guess what? Big surprise, they don't cover it either.
Did any one of these institutions give you a reason why they did not cover it? Or they just blanket said,
we don't cover this.
We don't cover it.
This is not what we cover. Okay. So then I call the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee, because that is the contact number on the government website. And all they would say to me was, refer to the website and we recommend that you contact a lawyer. Circles, right? Okay. I said, can you even tell me what forms I need to apply? Because surely that is not legal advice. Because they kept saying to me, I'm not a lawyer. You need to contact a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice. Well, telling me what forms I need is not legal advice.
It is your job because you are at the office in which...
But they would not tell me which forms I needed and to contact a lawyer. Okay. There are two forms on the website. One is the management plan for the property, and one is the guardianship plan for the person. And on both of these forms, it clearly says that they may need to be filled out as part of the application process. But nowhere does it tell me what the application process is. So then I have to go back to the internet and see if I can find someone who will at least give me 15 minutes of free time so that I can find out what forms I need. I find the Law Society Referral Office online. I answer some very straightforward questions, and I discover in that guardianship falls under estate law, which is why legal aid and all of those people don't cover it, because they deal with family law. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's under estate law. So they send me to an estate lawyer for a free 30-minute consultation in which legal advice can be given. They find someone in my area, connect us. Okay. So I speak to an estate lawyer and they said, well, guardianship is kind of a niche area of the law, and some people feel like it falls under family law, and some people feels like it falls under estate law. And I'm so angry on the phone listening to this because it's the law. It's not some people think this and that. Either it is or it is not.
So this is one person's interpretation of...
Don't know. Don't understand. Really irritated by it because I really feel like this information should just be available.
Black and white and the process.
It is not. So they could not help me. So they came up with a few names of other lawyers in the area who, of course, don't have any free consultation that I could possibly call. So useless. So I go back to the internet, see if there are any other free services I can find. I found two. Pro Bono Ontario, and I found the Ontario Legal Information Centre. So I know I'm covering all of this quickly. I don't really expect anyone to take notes and put all the information... I'm going to put all of this information on our website once I find all of the information.
Yes.
On our website, we have a tab that says Autism Information. I will put a subheading of guardianship, and I will link all of the forms and everything that I find along with some instructions about what I did. Right? And I'm not saying that that's a substitute for getting legal advice, because this is a pretty important topic. But maybe it's a starting point for people who can't afford a lawyer.
Yeah, and it gives you an opportunity to review the process in which you are now going through in order to get guardianship of Peter when he turns 18.
Exactly. So I call Pro Bono Ontario, and no one was answering the phone that day, and the message said, call back another day, which I was terribly angry about. So then I go on to the Ontario Legal Information Center, and there was a form I could fill in online, and someone would email me whether or not my application to speak with someone would be accepted. It was. So it took about 2 weeks to book a phone call, and well worth it. The person I spoke to could not give legal advice, and they could not give me legal representation, but they could give me information, half an hour's worth of information. And the woman I spoke to was absolutely amazing. And instead of answering my questions during our 30-minute conversation, she said that she would write me an email outlining everything I needed to know to file for guardianship myself. And she also suggested that I call back the Law Society Referral Service after I fill in all the forms and do all those things, and tell them that the first person that they directed me to was not specialized and unable to help me, and they should give you another 30 minutes.
Okay.
Because you can only do it once.
Okay.
Okay. She also said that if there is no one out there contesting guardianship, then the whole process is really just administrative. But if someone does contest it, then I would need a lawyer, and things were going to get very complicated.
Okay. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate over here, right? The situation that you're in is very different to, unfortunately, situations that I have heard about and read about, where vulnerable people have been taken advantage of, where people have applied for guardianship over somebody and, and pretty much made decisions for them, both financially, medically, personally, that has left them in, a very sad situation. So I know that my devil's advocate point is that there are people out there that are not with good intentions that do manipulate the vulnerable sector, right? And when you start to get into even your level ones, level 2s and level 3s are definitely a vulnerable sector. So I understand why the importance of this is there, but I don't understand why the process in which it needs to be is so, it's like an MI5 mission over here.
I don't understand the secrecy and the gatekeeping of this information, right? I understand that if someone at some point in their life becomes a vulnerable person, if they have a traumatic brain injury or something, they can no longer take care of themselves, they don't have a will, they don't have power of attorney, those kinds of things, someone could become their guardian and take advantage of them. That is why this goes through a judge, right? That's why you have to have the forms for a management plan, right? For a guardianship plan. So all of those things are in place to make sure that what you're talking about doesn't happen. But when it comes to this specific scenario of it being a child who is now transitioning into adulthood, who still needs their parent to care for them, how is that the same? It is different.
And considering we spent several hours in order interviewing and filling questionnaires for Peter in order to receive funding as he turns an adult. So he meets the criteria for everything. Yes. And so do you.
Exactly.
Which was frustrating because we're like, we just spent hours communicating with one arm of the government where he qualifies for, meets all these, whatever level that they're looking at, he meets all the criteria for all of that. It was frustrating.
It's asinine that there is no government office that helps with this major component in transitioning a high support needs individual into adulthood. Like that is, you would think that they would be welcoming parents to continue to care for their adult children and make that route as easy as possible, right? Because it's not like they have government facilities to take on the responsibility to care for the number of individuals that require 24/7 support, right? We talked about that in our last episode.
Yeah. No, they don't. They don't. So why are they making it so difficult?
Exactly.
It is such a contradiction. It is.
It's stupid. It is so stupid. And I have no other word for it. So this is where I'm at. I'm still waiting for the email from the lovely lady who helped me, who's going to send me an email with all of the information. So once I receive that, we can do an update, and I will put all of the information on our website, because no one should have to go through this. Like, I'm good at doing this and finding things, and there are a lot of people who are not.
No, and it becomes overwhelming. It becomes, you hit a point of desperation, right? When you have nowhere to go, and you take a very large financial hit when people are not good at researching. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that could be used to care for your child, to provide services for your child, provide services for yourself.
Worse than that, you might not have it. It might not just be like, oh, I begrudge spending this because it's going to impact us. It might be, I don't have this to spend.
That too. So I think this is a hardship. This is a hardship that should not be invoked on anybody. It should not. And to me, as we researched this, it becomes a hardship, because that's an extraordinary amount of money. So, so kudos for you for going down this rabbit hole. But every part of the way when we discuss this, I would be, the only words that kept coming out of my mouth was, oh my God.
Yeah, because you can't, how do you wrap your head around the fact that this is actually the process?
Yeah, it's sad.
It's not even sad. It's so irritating. It's irritating.
It is irritating. It is unbelievable. It is unbelievable that we're sitting here having a conversation and describing the process in which we're going through. So,
I can't be the only one who's ever had to do this.
No, and for our listeners out there who are in the same situation, who have been able to navigate through this, please do reach out to us. Please comment, do share your process, your pros and cons and the whole thing, so that we can provide others the same amount of necessary information to ensure the safety and well-being of your now adult child.
All right, deep breath. Okay, so I'm going to end that there, and we will follow up with this when I have more information. And again, I will put it all on the website.
Yeah. Which leads us to the importance of why it is necessary to have a will and to have a trust fund. So I think this is a good bridging podcast to our next one. And we're just going to generalize the information for you and point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
All right. Until then, have a great day.
We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.